Will UK house prices actually fall in 2026? It's one of those questions that gets asked all the time, and to be fair, it does get asked for good reason, because depending on who you listen to, the answer is pretty much completely different every time. Some people are still saying the market is about to fall off a cliff, whilst other people will tell you property only ever goes one way and anyone waiting for this drop is just wasting their time. As per, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle of that. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the genuine arguments for prices falling in 2026, the genuine arguments against that happening, and then at the end I'll give you the fairest conclusion I can. I don't think this is as simple as saying yes they will fall or no they will not fall, and I also think that one of the biggest mistakes people make with UK property is talking about it like it is just one market when it's not like that at all. You've got different regions, different price brackets, different tenant demand, different buyer demand, different affordability levels, and all of that is very important when working out house prices in the UK. So let's start with the case for prices falling. Affordability is still stretched. This is probably the biggest one. The Office for National Statistics has just shown that house prices relative to earnings are very stretched in many parts of England and Wales, especially in the south. What does that mean? Property got expensive a lot faster than wages were able to keep up. If buyers are already stretched because their wages can't keep up, and now their monthly mortgage payments are getting higher with the increase in rates and property prices, there's only so much the market can actually absorb. At the end of the day, people buy relative to the monthly cost of their mortgage. That is what actually decides whether a property is affordable or if it is not affordable. So even if rates come down a bit, which doesn't seem to be happening anytime soon, higher mortgage payments could still be uncomfortable due to the lack of wage increases, which will in turn put pressure on housing demand and then lower prices. This is the other big one. For years, the market got used to unbelievably cheap debt, and that became very normal. People borrowed cheaply, investors borrowed cheaply, and property values were supported by the fact that finance was a lot easier. I remember buying a property back in 2017, I think, and I got a buy-to-let rate of less than 2.2%, which is crazy. Then rates moved up, and that changed a lot of things. The Bank of England's rate rises fed through into mortgage pricing, and suddenly the same house at the same price looks completely different because the payment was way higher. I know a lot of people who went out of business overnight, or who just couldn't afford their mortgage because it tripled as soon as their fixed rate was over. Now in 2026, we've seen 6 rate cuts from the Bank of England since August of 2024, and we thought we were on our way back down again. But with recent turmoil in Iran, we've been told to get ready for a spike in mortgage rates, and some lenders have taken immediate action already. House prices and borrowing costs are tied in together. A house at £300,000 with a cheap mortgage is one thing, and then a house at 300 grand with a more expensive mortgage is something completely different. One is very desirable and affordable, the other is desirable and unaffordable. So if 2026 ends up being a year where rates do not come down as much as people hope, or mortgage pricing stays stubbornly higher than we've expected, that absolutely gives a reason for prices to soften. This is one people don't always talk about enough. It was spoke about early on, but not so much in 2026. A lot of demand was dragged forward already. The UK had a period where loads of demand got pulled forward. You had the stamp duty holiday, you had cheap borrowing, you had the race for more space, or the race for space, I think they called it, after COVID. And you had people making decisions way faster than they normally would have done and acting a bit irrationally, really. And whenever that happens, usually a bit of a hangover proceeds. We're probably most of the way through that hangover now, and the backlog of work that the Land Registry were dealing with is likely to be done. But we could still be experiencing this slower, flatter period where demand feels weaker because so much of the demand has been absorbed early on. Naturally, that can feed into softer pricing, considering the market got a bit overheated. Another reason prices could come down is that buyers have become a lot pickier. When the market is flying and money is cheap, people tend to overlook things. They'll pay a little bit more, they'll stretch the refurb budget, and generally they'll compromise a lot more. But when affordability tightens, they stop doing that. Suddenly, they are a lot more careful. They negotiate a lot harder, they walk away more easily from deals, they compare more listings, and essentially they are less willing to overpay just to secure something quickly. When buyers behave like that, houses hang around a lot longer, properties that are sold subject to contract return to the market more often, and then prices will just drop. Rightmove and Zoopla have also both reported periods where stock levels improved from that very tight post-pandemic condition, which basically means buyers had more choice than they did before. And once buyers have more choice, sellers lose a little bit of control, and then we move into what we call a buyer's market. This is where the conversation about property prices dropping can get a little bit lazy. For example, the question might well be, will UK house prices fall in 2026, for example? But the more useful question would be, where will UK house prices drop in 2026, or where will they fall? Because some areas are more exposed than others. If you've got a market where affordability is already stretched, property prices ran up hard in recent years, and where buyer demand has cooled off, then yes, those areas can absolutely fall. The entire UK market will not drop off a cliff though. You can have parts of the southeast fall. In prime central London right now, you're seeing property at 30 to 40% discounts and more. And then in parts of the north, it's being reported that huge amounts of capital growth is to be expected. There will always be parts of the country performing and parts of the country that are not performing. Now for me, I'd prefer not to be following the crowd who have seemingly decided to build a property portfolio in the north, and I would prefer to take advantage of the discounts that are happening right now in the south. Over a 10-year period, I believe, and I think you'll find as well, that I'll make more money. This is another one that gets missed all the time. Sometimes people look at the market and say, prices did not really fall. If inflation is still running high and house prices don't follow the inflation, then in real terms, prices have fallen. That means the value of the asset has gone backwards relative to the wider cost of living, even if the headline number has not moved at all or not moved much. So 2026 could easily be one of those years where people argue over whether there's been a fall or not, when actually the answer depends on how you measure it. Prices that stay flat can still be weak, and if you are buying or investing, that is important. Okay, now the case against prices falling in 2026. Let's flip it, because there are also some very solid reasons that prices might not fall this year, and in some areas they might not fall at all. The UK still does not build enough homes. This is the biggest argument against a meaningful fall, in my humble opinion. For years, the UK has not built enough homes to really meet demand properly. Basically, that means we've aimed for about 300,000 new homes annually, and we've failed at that massively. This is one of the reasons the UK market could stay resilient, even when we are in this buyer's market. If demand weakens a bit, there is still an underlying shortage of homes in a lot of areas. Now, does that mean that prices cannot fall? No, it doesn't. But it does mean we don't have enough homes in this country, and we have more than enough people to fill them. As I've mentioned throughout this video, housing is massively driven by confidence, not just rates, but what people think is going to happen with rates in the near future. If buyers believe the worst of the mortgage shock is behind us, that can be enough on its own just to bring back the demand. And this is where some people get caught out. They think that rates have to go all the way back to where they were before for the market to recover, but they do not have to do that. The rates just need to stop getting worse, and ideally start easing enough for buyers to feel like they're not catching a falling knife. So if 2026 is a year where rates are easing, and I'm not sure if they will in this current climate, and then lenders get a bit more competitive, that could be enough to support prices going up. This bit is less exciting, but it's very important again. Not every housing market adjustment happens through prices falling. Sometimes prices just go sideways for a little while, and then wages need to catch up with it. The ONS, or the Office for National Statistics, said annual regular earnings was growing at 3.8% from November 2025 to January 2026. If earnings keep rising and house prices stay broadly flat, affordability can improve without there needing to be a big nominal crash. This is something a lot of people who predict crashes will bypass or miss altogether. Sellers do not always panic and dump stock at any price. Very often you'll find that they sit tight, especially if they bought it for like 2p 35 years ago. They can afford to pull the property from the market and then simply just wait it out. They could potentially remortgage if they wanted and stay where they are. That is really important because it means a soft market does not automatically equal a falling market. Sometimes it just means that there are fewer deals that are going to happen. Forecasts from serious analysts have not generally pointed to a huge crash. Now, forecasts are not perfect and I would not treat any of them like gospel, but they are still worth looking at. Groups like Savills, Zoopla and major lenders have generally leaned more towards more modest movements rather than anything dramatic happening and dramatic national falls. That does not mean they're guaranteed to be right, but it does tell you that a lot of serious people looking at this market do not think the most likely outcome is some massive drop across the whole country. So what do I actually think? What's my overarching view of this? With employment rising to 5.2% and predictions of inflation at about 4.5%, I think these two factors will be probably the biggest in determining house prices. Top that off with recent news of lenders raising their rates due to the conflict in Iran, and some lenders already taking immediate action by removing products from the market altogether. I think house prices will probably drop soon. You can view it in two ways, right? One, that this is an unbelievable buying opportunity, especially considering we've already had several years of average property price drops. So another drop would indicate that we're a little bit closer to an increase. We've never had a 10-year period in property where property prices on average have dropped. So buying in the 4 to 5 year dip now, it stands to reason that in another 5 years, it will bring an overall increase. Or you can be in the camp where we are on a continuing downward trend and are merely at the start of it right now. I'm not in that camp personally, and I will continue to help my clients invest in property and invest in property myself as well. So that is my take on whether UK house prices will fall in 2026. If you are looking to invest this year or you need to sell your property fast, please get in touch with me through the link in the description below. Any ideas you have for the next video, please drop them in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next video.